Hey folks, how's it going? Wee cup of tea, Sunday afternoon. Let's do a book haul. Right, let's get into it. Went to Waterstones on Friday in Glasgow, the big one, Sauchiehall Street. Had some time to kill, so I mean, where else are you going to go in Glasgow? Do you know what I mean? So I went in not intending to buy anything. I'd actually brought a book with me. I was intending to sit in one of the comfy chairs, maybe get a cup of coffee, read my book. Ended up with a wee haul. So let's get into it. This one was an impulse buy. This is book 14 in the Wheel of Time series, A Memory of Light. And this is one of the ones that is co-written by Brandon Sanderson, or in fact, wholly written by Brandon Sanderson. And I bought it because it was £3. It was on that section, the sale bookend. I was like, well, £3? That's a cup of coffee. Now, have I read any of the other ones? That's a very good question. I'm glad you asked. Yes, I've read 1 and 2. The Eye of the World and The Great Hunt. I have them on Kindle. I don't have them in physical format. And I enjoyed them and then stopped. Which means I'm going to have to read them again. And I have been watching some content on YouTube. Sam particularly. When I first learned about Sam Harrison, one of the first videos of his that I watched was a review of Eye of the World, along with his friend Matt. So I know I'm going to get to them at some point, and I figured I might as well have it on the shelf for £3. I think it's because of this. See, it's a little bit bent there. I think that might be why it went down from £13. I can't even see what the full price is because they've put a sticker over it. So there we go, £3 fantasy book that I know I'm going to get to at some point. Next up, does Putin have to die? Good question. This was a very recent discovery. I was watching the Free Press, which is an online newspaper website that I like to read the news on. And they had an interview with the author, who's a former member of the Russian Parliament, Ilya Ponomarev. And his interview was very interesting. Didn't agree with all of it, but I figured it would make sense to read his book because I'm very interested in Russian politics and Putin in particular, so I'd really like to learn what this guy has to say about Putin, because it's just fascinating. So, yeah, imagine Putin's death. It doesn't matter from what. Coronavirus, a brick falls on his head, or now, during his unsuccessful war in Ukraine, he takes a bullet in the head from an insider. Perhaps there's a rope involved. In Russia, this death immediately causes a huge imperious backlash. Emptiness. This instantly leads to a conflict between rival power clans. Names are not so important now. Sechin, Kovalchuk, Chemezov, or others. After so many years of stagnation in Russia, many ambitious, influential and wealthy people gave up on the possibility of changing things and now just go with the flow. However, they still have sharp teeth and a lot to lose. So when they see real danger for their lives and properties, they will immediately dive in with their best political game. It goes on. But yeah, that'll be an interesting read. Next up, an impulse buy. This was on the new releases section. Night Train to Odesa by Jen Stout. So I just saw it in the new releases, picked it up, read the blurb. Night Train to Odesa begins in Russia and continues to focus on people, relationships and individuals in Ukraine. It is the account of a young female reporter with no institutional backup or security. So I'd never heard of Jen Stout. And on the way home, I looked up her Instagram, and it sounds like this is the kind of stuff I would really enjoy. As you can see, it's BBC Radio 4 Book of the Week. And she's doing some radio appearances as well at the moment in Radio Scotland, which I haven't listened to. Jen Stout comes from Shetland, which I also found an interesting data point. So here we go. When Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine, millions of lives changed in an instant. A great mass of people were suddenly on the move. In this flow of people was a reporter from Shetland. Jen Stout left Moscow abruptly, ending up on a border post in southeast Romania, from where she began to cover the human cost of Russian aggression. Her first-hand vivid accounts brought the war home to readers in the UK as she reported from front lines and cities across Ukraine. Stories from the night trains, impromptu birthday parties, military hospitals and bunkers. Stories from the ground, from a writer with a deep sense of empathy, always seeking to understand the bigger picture, the big questions of identity, history, hopes and fears in this war in Europe. And she also writes articles for the Sunday Post, which is a Scottish, is it tabloid? I suppose it's a tabloid. And it's got some pictures in the middle. These are just beautiful reportage style colour photographs of real people in Ukraine and some of the destruction, some city shots, and her Instagram will really go well with the book, so I can read the book and I can look at her photographs and learn more about this. Odesa for me is somewhere special because I spent a year living there back in my student days, 95 to 96, when it was pretty wild. You know, it wasn't that long since the wall came down, and it was a place in flux at the time, struggling to find its identity in the new political landscape. So yeah, interesting times. The last one, another Russian history, Soviet history. This is October by China, Miéville. And this one I looked at before in Waterstones and didn't buy. I suppose that's how they get you. It's just a drip, right? So this one says, well, this is just blurbs. Is there a synopsis? More blurbs, more blurbs, more blurbs. So I've read some China Miéville's fiction. I've never read any of his non-fiction. And you can never have too many books about Russian history and particularly the revolution. But no, there's no synopsis, just blurbs. So I'll read you this first blurb then. To give a new generation of readers a fresh account of the Great Revolution, incorporating all the post-1989 archival discoveries and scholarly research is a singularly daunting task. To render it in vivid oracular prose, moving across the pages with the gathering force of a hurricane, is something that only China Miéville could achieve. So says Mike Davis, author of Late Victorian Holocausts. And just one more from the Financial Times. This gripping account is a reenactment of the Russian Revolution. His writing can be as passionate as that of the poets of the time. Miéville's own special effects are of a piece with them. So, not a terribly long book, and I'm hoping that because it's written by a fiction writer, it's going to be a bit easier to read than some of the more academic stuff that I have on my shelf. So that's my wee unintended haul from Friday's visit to Waterstones. Guess where I'm going to be again tomorrow? Yep, got another day in Glasgow with a whole day to kill this time, not just half a day, so see how that goes.